everyone. I am so excited that so many of you are here today. I'm actually so excited that I'm practically teary-eyed, which is totally unprofessional, but I knew this would happen. My name is Elizabeth Weal. My name is Elizabeth Weal, and I am president of Sequoia Adult School Scholars, the organization that has brought this program to you today. I'd first like to ask you to turn off your cell phone. I also want to tell you that we want to encourage you to ask Jose questions. If you want to ask him a question, you can use the index card in your program. We're going to collect them twice, once before we have a video, and then again later on, halfway through the conversation. So if you have a burning question that you want to ask Jose, make sure you write it down and pass it along. And finally, we are having a reception for Jose after this event. Jose will be there. We hope all of you can be there as well. We are at a pivotal juncture in the history of immigration reform. And by being here today, you are part of that history. I have no doubt that in 10 or 15 years, when our children or grandchildren are studying immigration reform, Jose Antonio Vargas is going to be front and center in that discussion. He's going to be front and center because of the unbelievable courage he showed by coming out as an undocumented immigrant in such a very public way. And he's also going to be front and center because of his unrelenting energy in painting or showing a very public face of what it's like to be undocumented. So you're going to be able to say to yourself, yeah, I saw Jose Antonio Vargas. I was there when he told his story. So I'd like everybody to sit back, relax, remember what the date is, remember where you are, and get set to spend the afternoon with an extraordinary American. So now I would like to bring to the stage immigrant rights activist, founder of Define American, filmmaker, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and graduate of Mountain View High School, Jose Antonio Vargas. Before our conversation with Jose, I want to tell you a little bit about Sequoia Adult School Scholars, because that is really the reason that we are all here today. Sequoia Adult School Scholars was founded in 2010 to provide scholarships for students who have graduated from Sequoia Adult School and want to continue their education. Sequoia Adult School currently serves about 2,000 students, primarily in ESL classes, GED classes, and high school diploma classes. When students graduate from our program, when they're finished the highest level of English or ESL classes, when they've received their GED, these students are poised to go on. They're ready to start a career. Maybe a student wants to be a medical assistant, or maybe the student wants to go into human services, or maybe the student just needs more English so that they can be more successful at work. To make that transition, students need to go to community college. For many people, community college is very affordable. But when you're earning $1,100 a month and you have a family to support, paying to continue your education just isn't an option. We created Sequoia Adult School Scholars so that we could ensure that all deserving graduates of our school have the financial assistance that they need to pursue the American dream. The scholarship has grown tremendously. We started out in 2010 with 2 scholarship recipients. This year at Kenyatta College, right now, this semester, we have 40 students. I'd like to introduce 3 of those students to you today, and also one of the founding members of Sequoia Adult School Scholars, who is also our Vice President of Programs.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
One thing, please don't applaud until everyone has spoken. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Armando Gomez. I came here when I was 19, and and my first job was a laborer, and then made me a foreman. I worked 16 years straight non-stop for the same company. Then I got laid off. Everyone told me the same thing. They told me, to be a foreman, you need a GED. So I went to school to study the GED in Spanish. When I passed, I got my GED, and I knew I didn't want to stop. So I started Sequoia Adult and studied English. Then I transferred to Cañada campus. This semester I'm taking my first architecture class. It is my passion. I can work for drawing for 5 or 6 hours, but I never feel tired. I am 46 years old. I just got my old job back, so I know. Now I work full time. I have a wife, 3 children, and 3 dogs. But I know it. It's not too late to pursue my dream. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Yadira Magaña. I never went to school in Mexico, not for one day. I started working when I was 8 years old. I worked at my godfather's taco stand from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. Then I went home and my mom went to work in the fields. She was worried that something might happen to her 4 daughters. So she locked the doors when she left, and all day we stayed inside. Then when my mom came home, I went back to work. When I was 19, my mom needed to escape from a man who was abusing her. So my mom, my sisters, and I moved to the USA. My first job, it was at Target. But after 3 years, they fired me because I didn't have papers. After that, I worked at Subway. I worked there for 5.5 years. But they found out I didn't have papers and they fired me too. Finally, I decided to go to school. It was too hard to find another job. When I went to Sequoia Adult School, I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. But I liked the classes. I even liked taking tests. I finished the highest level of ESL at Sequoia Adult School. Now, I have a scholarship, so I can study ESL at Cañada College. My class, it was very hard because I never went to school in my country. But I am not going to give up because now I have what I never had. I have a school where I can study and learn. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amado Flores. When I came here to the United States 2 years ago, I started out taking ESL classes at Sequoia Adult School. Now I'm taking English 110 at Cañada College. We just read The Mark on the Wall by Virginia Woolf. I didn't understand a lot of things about that short story, but one thing I realized was that a lot of my American classmates didn't understand either. Recognizing that gave me confidence. Sorry. I remember when I came here, I went to like 20 stores looking for a job and no one called me. After 4 months, I got a job at a Mexican restaurant, but now I am a student assistant at the computer lab at Cañada College. That's very motivating for me that I have been improving. But also I am a full-time student. My plan is to get a AES degree from Cañada College and then transfer to a 4-year university and get a degree in civil engineering. One thing that is amazing to me about this country is that there are people here willing to help others they don't know without they don't know that they don't know. They don't, without judging them, without saying, oh, he's undocumented, oh, he's Mexican, he's too old to go to school. They help you when you need it most, at the critical moment. I just want to finish it saying that now I can express my gratitude with words, but there are no words to pay that, and I can't express the significance of your help and support. Without your help and support, with your help and support, I'm trying to achieve my goals. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Brianna Chavez, and today I'm here wearing two hats. I am a graduate of College Track, one of the sponsors of this event. Thank you. College Track! And I'm on the board of the Sequoia Adult School Scholars and serve as Vice President of Programs. I grew up in San Carlos, where there weren't very many Latinos at my school. In kindergarten, I was put in special ed. I spoke Spanish at home and knew very little English. And they thought I was developmentally delayed. That's when my mom realized that if she didn't get involved in my education, I was going to lose out. And my mom and my dad became very involved in my education. Still, I never thought I'd go to college. It just wasn't in my culture, or part of my culture. That changed when I was accepted into College Track, where I was provided support, empowered to dream big, and I was afforded the opportunity to achieve a college education. I learned that I had the potential to be somebody and go to college, be successful, and come back to my community. I went off to UC Santa Cruz, where I majored in community studies and minored in education. And I worked for an organization similar to College Track after college. And then I was given the opportunity to come back here to my community and work. I've been on the board of the Sequoia Adult School Scholars since 2010, where we initially started with 2 students and helped them transition to a community college. Since then, we've helped over 100 students, either by helping them pay for GED fees or transitioning them to college. But the best part of it is that I'm here today, and now I have the opportunity, and I'm in a position to give students that same message that I was given. You have the potential to go to college and be somebody and come back to your community too. Thank you.
Jose Antonio Vargas is author of My Life as an Undocumented Immigrant, which appeared in the New York Times Magazine in June 2010. You saw his picture on the cover of Time Magazine in June 2011, and most recently he has testified before before the Senate on immigration reform. I'd like to begin the conversation with Jose by showing you a video which presents a picture of Jose in his earlier years. And after that, we will start our conversation. This video was from the Rachel Maddow show in 2011.
Watch this clip here for a second. I was born in the Philippines. I moved to the United States when I was 12. My mother wanted to give me a better life, so she sent me to live with my grandparents in Silicon Valley. I loved America the moment I got here. Embraced the language, the culture, the people. English was my second language, and I learned to speak American by watching Frasier, Home Improvement, and The Golden Girls. I won the spelling bee in 8th grade by spelling indefatigable. In high school, I fell in love with journalism. I started working for my local newspaper, the Mountain View Voice. Then I got hired at the Washington Post. I covered the 2008 presidential campaign, from traveling on Hillary Clinton's plane to pheasant hunting with Huckabee. I've interviewed Al Gore for Rolling Stone and profiled Mark Zuckerberg for The New Yorker. I even won a Pulitzer Prize for covering the Virginia Tech massacre. At age 16, I I rode my bike to the DMV to get my driver's permit. I brought my green card with me. The woman at the DMV flipped it around. She leaned over and she whispered, "This is fake. Don't come back here again." I went home and confronted my grandfather. That was the first time I realized that I'm an undocumented immigrant. What some people call an illegal.
We're supposed to be clapping, okay?
Oh, I just want to say, can we give one more round of applause to the 4 people? I guess this is why I decided to do this, because Elizabeth was so kind to invite me. Can you imagine how many other people are like that, just all around our communities every day that maybe we haven't talked to, or maybe we should be talking to? So, yeah, it's really great to be here.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I guess my first question is, why are you here? You are a very busy guy. I see you all over the internet. What are you doing here?
Because you wouldn't take no for an answer, Elizabeth. No, I'm here because, you know, I've been on a crazy schedule trying to engage as many people as possible, and I think, you know, we have to preach beyond the choir. I think it's really important for us at this historic moment to be talking to people who may not agree with us. So I've been doing a lot of kind of Republican outreach. We're planning a couple of Tea Party events in the next month or so. Really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's why. But I'm here because this is where I grew up. This is the place where this is my home. So if I can't help here, I have to be able to help here too as I'm going around the country. So.
We're really lucky that you were born in Mountain View. So thank you. And just one question, which everybody asks, so I want to get that right off the table. Could you be deported like right now or no?
Yeah, I mean, any undocumented person, if they were an ICE official, could come apprehend anybody who's undocumented. There's an estimate that the government deports about 1,000 people every day. I don't know if you know that. The Obama administration has supported more than 1.5 million people in 4 years, more than any other president. So yeah, I could, and I should just say this right off the bat. I'm the most privileged undocumented person in America to be doing what I'm doing. And that's why I have to be mindful of the privilege and also at the same time be responsible to not just people, to all of us, there's 11 million of us. We're not all the same, but we all share kind of the same struggle and the same hopes.
So I'm curious, when you found out, as in the video, that you were not documented, how did you feel? Were you like angry, nervous, ready to take on the world, thought it was a mistake? What was your immediate response?
Okay, so the first response was, this was in 1997. So I grew up part of the Proposition 187 era. And so when the woman at the DMV said the green card was fake, my first instinct was, oh, maybe she thought I'm Mexican. Isn't that horrible? Because my name is Jose Antonio Vargas, and a little tip from me to you: if you see an Asian person with a Hispanic name, it means they're Filipino. Just FYI. Not all of us, but many of us have Hispanic or Latino surnames. Spanish colonialism, 300 years, all that. So my first instinct was thinking, oh, she's lying. maybe she think I'm Mexican. And then I went home and confronted my grandfather, and then he was the one that said, that thing is fake. And I thought, am I the only Filipino who's undocumented? And this was in 1997, so there was not even a DREAM Act, right? I thought I was lost, scared, terrified, angry. I was really angry. I was angry at my grandparents. I was angry at my mother. I was angry at just the situation. I was just, I was 16 and I was asking questions that they didn't really have answers to. Meaning, like, how did this happen? What was the plan? Hello? Am I just supposed to be? Then when my grandfather said the goal was for me to come here and work under the table jobs, I wanted to do more than work under the table jobs. Not that there's anything wrong with under the table jobs, but just it wasn't my plan. So I was just mad about that. Because I was naive, I was immature, I didn't realize until I was maybe 22, 23 that I had been so immature and not grateful enough for what they did. They dreamed for me something that I didn't even dream for myself,
So at some point you said that graduating from Mountain View High School was the greatest achievement of your life. I found that kind of surprising. Why was that?
People ask me, as I've been doing this now for almost 2 years, why do I seem so calm? And why is it that I seem, one person said on Facebook the other day, can't you get angrier on television? I want you to start yelling at Bill O'Reilly or something. Like, a lot of my place of peace and the place that I find a lot of that grounds me is the fact that I graduated from Mountain View High School. The fact that if it wasn't for my high school principal, my high school superintendent, my choir teacher, my English teacher, a woman named Mary Moore who's here today sitting there. Back to one of the students said how kind Americans are. I am a beneficiary, like many people, of the kindness and the generosity of the American people. I believe that we are a kind people. And so I try to hold on to that, even though sometimes it gets really hard when you get a lot of hateful, ignorant emails and, confrontational stuff. So for me, if I had made it out of Mountain View High School as a 16-year-old, scared for my life, and graduating 3 years later with a family, my Filipino family and my Mountain View High School family, I felt like I could do anything. And I did, as much as I could. So that's why I always say that, whatever I am indebted to my high school. And I can only imagine how many people can say that. So that's why I say that.
At one point I read that you really worked at getting rid of your accent. Obviously you have no accent now, but why was that so important and how did you do it? Just because there's a lot of people in the audience.
By the way, that's... I was in the University of Georgia in Athens last year, I think. I got invited by the college Republicans to come, so I came. And this young man, Gustavo, immigrated across the border with his parents from Mexico. He was the first person to raise his hand and ask a question. And he said, what if, I have an accent still, trying to get rid of it. So, what if I have an accent? Are you the only person who's supposed to be saved because you don't have an accent? I stood there and I just melted. Because in my head, to be an illegal person, which is what I was called since I was a kid, meant that I didn't sound American. But what does America sound like? To me, it sounded like Frasier, and like Golden Girls, and like Spike Lee movies, and Woody Allen. And it sounded like hip-hop, and like, it sounded like hip-hop, but then it also sounded like, Sarah McLachlan. It also sounded like, Joni Mitchell, it's, that. And so, thank God, for the Mountain View Public Library and the Los Altos Public Library. I mean, I think every movie I could, and I would sit there in front of the television and I would just mouth what they said so I could get rid of this accent. But again, when I got older, I started thinking, but what was so wrong with my accent? Why is it that we think a Spanish accent or a Filipino accent or a Chinese accent? Why isn't that looked at in the way we look at French accents or Italian accents or German accents? What does that tell us? Right? And that's why I hated that kid's question to me.
We're just trying to get your Filipino accent back.
Oh, I mean, it comes out. Oh, yeah. I mean, I speak Tagalog fluently, and I'm glad I never lost it. But there isn't such a thing, which is why the organization is called Define American. What are we supposed to sound like? We're supposed to sound like the world, because the whole world is within us. And I think that's an important thing to kind of, remember and keep in mind.
Can you talk a little bit about the Underground Railroad and what that meant to you?
Thank you for asking that question. So when I publicly outed myself, I wasn't really the only person who was outing myself. I outed, of course I got their permission, my high school principal, my high school superintendent, the venture capitalist who created a private scholarship to send me to college. I outed a guy named Peter Pearl, who was an editor at the Washington Post, who basically risked his career to protect mine. And as far as I'm concerned, every undocumented person comes with 4, 5, 6 people in their lives who helped them. Neighbors, co-workers, people who go to church with us. I just met 2 weeks ago a gentleman, student, who's undocumented and he can't drive, and his pastor gave him a bike. And I want to hear from that pastor. Why did that pastor do that? So we called it the Underground Railroad, and I say this as, with all due respect to African American history. And then we did some poll testing. People liked the term, but most people didn't know the term. Isn't that horrible? Most Americans don't know what the Underground Railroad is. So we've changed it now to just allies. People who are allies. Yeah.
You want to tell everybody what the Underground Railroad is, Justin?
I mean, the Underground Railroad is in some ways a testament to the power of the American spirit. The fact that we are all in this together, and abolitionists, fighting slavery, and the fact that we needed white people to wake up to help black people as well, as black people were, empowering themselves and helping each other out. I mean, it insists that this is a marriage, you and I, right? The fact that we're in this together. So to me, that's what the Underground Railroad is about.
So after you graduated from high school and you went to college and then you worked at a number of newspapers, you get a Pulitzer Prize, and then one day, what changed? What clicked that made you decide, I can't do this anymore? I have to come out publicly as undocumented?
I think it started when I was covering the presidential campaign in 2008. As an undocumented person driving around the country, right, and flying on Hillary Clinton's plane, isn't anybody going to find out? Is somebody going to know that the social security number isn't valid? Why isn't anybody contacting me? It was almost like a daily dare. It was oh, look what we can get away with today. What was good? So I think it started in the campaign, and then when Obama won, and I was in Iowa covering the Iowa caucuses when Barack Obama won the Iowa caucuses. And I remember standing there thinking to myself, Iowa, 95% white Iowa just voted Barack Obama president. Because I just knew in my head, I was thinking something was happening in which the other in America was changing. Right? We had just elected whom people consider the ultimate other. And every other person in America who considered themselves the other felt empowered after that. And I felt empowered. So that was a part of the change too. Yeah.
So you were undocumented for almost 15 years. What was that like on a daily basis?
I know we don't have all that. I'm going to keep this really brief, but
I know it's hard.
it's a hard question. You know, people forget this, but to be an undocumented person in America is to be obsessed with pieces of documents. We are talking about pieces of papers. I mean, we all know that, right? So, getting a driver's license, you know, like that driver's license was everything to me. I had it for 8 years, and it was my only piece of ID. So to be an undocumented person in this country, the fact that we're talking about pieces of papers, the fact that you all know we're here, it's like the big freaking elephant in the room. Yeah, you all know we're here. You all know that the economy depends largely on the skills that we give to this country. You all know that we're amongst you, and yet it's this kind of surreal, what do you want to do with us? Right? Which is why when I testified in front of Congress, you know, that was the most, for me, so far, it's been the most stressful thing is to testify in front of Congress. Just because, how do I represent, I can't represent 11 million people. But towards the end of the speech, you know, I kind of just threw in a couple of questions because I figured I'm a journalist, so why don't I ask these senators questions before they ask me questions? And the question was, you know, what do you want to do with me? What do you want to do with us? We can't all babysit your kid to mow your lawns and drink your drinks. So what do you want to do with us? You know, I mean, I think it's a very, in some ways, it's at the heart of the whole conversation. And then lastly, how do you define American? Because, you know, that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about immigration, we're actually talking about the nature of citizenship. I'm an American. I'm just waiting for my country to recognize it.
This question came from one of our supporters. I thought it was a great question, which is, what heroes or role models have you had that you kind of turn to when life gets really dicey?
Oh my gosh, a lot of people. Again, my high school principal, Pat Hyland, she's at Foothill now. She was the first person I called when the Washington Post offered me an internship. Because 800 people apply and like 20 people get it. So I called her when I got it, and I said, the first thing I said to her is, am I taking somebody else's job? Because that's what we're really, you know, that's what we're led to think. That we're just taking. And she's like, she laughed. And then she said, what are you talking about? Go. When I found out that the Pulitzer was happening, my first phone call was my high school superintendent, Rich Fisher, because I was scared. Instead of being happy, I remember actually Rich was happy on the phone, and I think he could hear that I wasn't happy. So he was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, you know, what do I do now? So I turn to them a lot, and it's really wonderful to have Rich and Pat and Mary and all these people in my life who've known me since I was 16. You know, and I was like 17, and I was just like lost. And to have them there is incredibly grounding. You know, what's been really weird for me, and which is why I can't stand to watch myself like that, it's really weird, especially because I'm doing a documentary. I'm not a hero. I'm not inspiring. I'm not courageous. I don't think of myself as any of these things. I just want to be what you are. What some of you take for granted sometimes. Right? And I think it's important for us to remember that I don't want to be put in some sort of a pedestal that you have to knock me out of. The four amazing people that just spoke here, we're all trying to be just the fullest human beings that we possibly could be. And we need your help to do that. So, I hope that answers your question.
That definitely answers my question. In terms of, because as a journalist, I'm sure you love words and love literature. Are there any authors or writers that you kind of turn to for strength?
Letter from Birmingham Jail meant more to me than I probably could explain. I read that when I was in 8th grade, and it confused me because it said that an unjust law is no law at all. So I'm like, wait, a law is a law. What the hell is an unjust law? And then, of course, I found out it was undocumented when I was 16. I'm like, oh, that's what an unjust law is. So that meant a lot to me. And then I discovered this man named James Baldwin, who was really just been like my oracle. He's probably my favorite writer. Yeah.
What about the fact that you're gay? Two questions about that. One is sort of the personal side, and also, I think a lot of people don't understand the connection between gay rights and immigration reform. So, two different questions.
Actually, this is, I don't know if people know this, but most of the leaders of the undocumented youth movement, the Dreamer movement, are openly gay. It's really fascinating. I think it's something that works. I think maybe because we've grown up thinking about coming out, and the fact that it's not really coming out. We're not really coming out, we're just letting you in. That I think is an interesting framework to think about. There's a lot of intersections, and which is why a Senate immigration bill is going to be probably introduced by the end of this week. If that bipartisan bill doesn't include same-sex people in it, the very first people who will cry wolf are the dreamers, straight dreamers, who are not going to stand for their LGBT friends not to be included. That's just going to be the reality. And which leads us really to the point that this is why I think it's such an amazing time we're living in. We're living in this, in some ways, unprecedented age of intersectionality, right? You don't have to be a woman to be a feminist. You don't have to be gay to fight for LGBT rights. You don't have to be undocumented to care about immigrant rights. My equality is tied to your equality. That. And that makes me, looking at this young generation of Americans, just feel very optimistic about hopefully where we're going to go.
So when you travel around the country, which I know you've been doing a lot, what are the greatest misconceptions that you see that people have about undocumented people and immigration in general?
Well, a lot of it actually has to do with, so I publicly disclosed my status in June 2011, right? I can't believe it's been almost 2 years. I expected to hear from somebody. Like, isn't immigration going to call and say what's up? Like, a lot of people in the White House know I am just because I was a reporter covering the campaign. So, I've been to the White House. Okay. I didn't hear from anybody, and so then I contacted the editor of Time magazine and I said, I want to write a story about why I haven't gotten deported. And he was like, what? Yeah, why not? There's no hiding now. And we structured the essay in Time magazine after the questions that people ask me every day. So I've done about 150 events in 30 different states. Alabama, Georgia, Arizona, Arkansas, Ohio, Wisconsin. So people ask questions like, so you're not Mexican? 1 million out of the whole 11 million undocumented population are actually Asian. 1 million out of the 11 million are Asian and Pacific Islander, Filipinos, Chinese, Koreans. 300,000 are from Europe, undocumented white people. There's actually a pretty big undocumented Jewish population from Israel in New York that no one ever talks about. There's a large undocumented African immigrant population that we don't know what to do with because resources-wise, they don't get enough resources because people think it's only a Latino issue or an Asian issue. Questions like, why don't you just make yourself legal? That's one that gets me so upset.
What's the answer? Tell us.
I'm a masochist, and this is like so much more fun. I'm just craving attention. I'm astounded by that question. But I gotta tell you, every day, like when I check my Twitter right now, I'm probably gonna get 5 of those questions. Get legal. Is that a t-shirt? I would love to get legal. Can you show me where the line is? Can you give me a process? Immigration, I would argue, is the most controversial but least understood issue in America. People simply do not know how it works. One last thing I want to point out, so just to kind of underscore the complexity of this. So my grandparents sent me here, my mom sent me here to live with my grandparents. And of course I found out that my papers were not right, that I came here illegally, right? Actions are illegal, not people. I came here illegally, but I'm not illegal. That's very important to keep in mind. So by the time that happened, I was like, well, why couldn't my grandparents just petition me? Grandparents can't petition grandkids. It's not considered a close enough of a relationship. Why didn't my grandparents petition my mother to get here? Well, because she was already married. And parents can only petition single kids, not married kids. If you think the tax code is complicated, try understanding the immigration code. And to me, what's been just so mind-numbing is we talk about immigration as if it's all about the U.S.-Mexico border, when 40% of the undocumented population in America had visas and overstayed them. 40%. Meaning that almost half of the people who are here actually came legally. Did you guys know that? We don't hear that! So I feel like I'm reporting all this out, and the only difference is I'm personally a part of the story. And the media is, unfortunately, largely to blame for this, but also us. You know, like, what do we really know? I'm only the illegal that you haven't bothered to understand. This is not what you think it is, and this is not what you think we are. And so that's been kind of the biggest message.
So you always hear that the country is so polarized. That's sort of the conventional wisdom. But when you go to places like Alabama and Arizona, are you feeling a different vibe or no?
We're just not talking to each other. And this is why I'm so grateful for my training as a journalist. I'm trained to sit down with people and actually figure out why they think the way that they think. I'm not here to judge. First of all, I am in no position to judge. You know, I can't come from a holier than thou. I lied. There's no denying it. I lied. So when I go to places like Alabama, you know, I just had this pretty surreal Twitter exchange with Michelle Malkin. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a conservative columnist. She's on Fox News a lot. She and I got a 2-hour Twitter exchange. 2 hours. And thankfully, Michelle, who's Filipino, her parents are actually Filipino, we had an exchange that was blunt but civil. But what was interesting is she never got around to asking the question, because I asked it multiple times, what's the solution? What's the solution? So when I'm engaging with people who don't agree with me, I think it's important for me to at least just first hear them out, and then try to figure out why they think the way that they think. And in Alabama, that was really interesting, because I did a week-long lecture series at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And to hear some of the mostly working-class white students talk about immigration, they're like, my dad is a roofer. He wants to charge $30 for a job. These illegals want to charge $20. What's my dad supposed to do? Now mind you, that's a very fair question. Right? It's a fair question. So then I had to unpack that in front of the whole class and say, wait a second. So you're blaming the people who are getting... This is America. We're addicted to cheap labor. We tell the U.S.-Mexico border, keep out, and then 10 yards in, we say, job wanted. Right? So let's agree on the South was built. Right? So here I am in Alabama talking about this. So why are we blaming the people who are getting exploited? Your dad is getting taken advantage of. I mean, your dad is not getting what he should be getting. The migrant farm worker or the migrant roofer is getting taken advantage of. So why are we not focusing on the employer? So, let's keep this real. I grew up in this area. How many times in Home Depot, we look for jobs for people, right, that can paint or do something, and then we turn around and call them illegals behind their backs. I mean, we cannot have a conversation about the U.S.-Mexico border and border security without having an honest conversation about labor and what it's worth. So I find that to be a big, big part of this conversation.
Unfortunately, we're almost out of time, but I do have one more question for you, which is that there's a lot of students in this audience.
Oh yes, apparently yes, I was told that.
And so do you have any advice for them, documented or undocumented, about kind of how to forge a path in their future, given the situation today?
Well, I have a friend who teaches at Carleton College in Minnesota. It's a pretty prestigious school. I didn't know, really. But I went. And it was a mostly privileged crowd. And my message to them, this was literally like 3 nights ago, was, I hope you don't take for granted what you have. The fact that you're blessed and privileged enough to be born in this country. And being American to me is not only a given, it's something that you have to earn. And I hope they understand that, we are at this moment where immigration is not only a Latino issue or Asian issue, like we need you to get involved. We need you to speak out. There's that one message. For undocumented young people, James Baldwin had this great quote that I read when I was in college. The greatest difficulty is to say yes to life. So there are many people in my life that said yes to me when a lot of other people said no, that opened doors for me. And I found some of the doors too, but I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I've been basically on an interesting depressed mode since I was 16 years old. And every day I have to wake up and say to myself that I can't give up on myself because so many people didn't give up on me. And I owe it to them to keep going, and I owe it to my mother, who I haven't seen for 20 years. To keep going. So you have to keep going. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Rosemary Ramirez, who is the president of the Dream Club at Sequoia High School. She's a senior, and she will be attending Sacramento State in the fall.
Well, Jose, it's such an honor to be here with you. And just to get straight to business, first question is, can you describe how you found the courage to conquer fear and say, I am undocumented?
I found it by watching all these dreamers do it long before I did. Undocumented young people have been coming out on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, at their schools since as early, I think it's 2003, 2004. I was so behind. Which is why people call me courageous. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was a coward for a good 6 years there. I could have just jumped right in. And I didn't. So I feel like all of us are just trying to find the courage to inspire each other and support each other in that way.
What is the status of your efforts to get residence status? And what recommendations do you have for current undocumented students and those a little older?
Okay, the older part, that's a really good point. I just want people to remember, when we talk about the DREAM Act, we're talking about a very specific group, in a way. What kills me sometimes is I think about, I'm 32, so kind of in the older end of the DREAM Act. How many people we've lost who just kind of gave up? Right? Going through high school is hard enough. Having this to deal with just makes it even more impossible. So I think about that a lot. And as for the first question, one of the things I had to decide very early on is, because I'm privileged enough to have some connections, and so if I wanted to do this, if I wanted to get legal, there could have been a couple of ways that we could have done this privately, but then I would have to shut up about it. So I thought about that for a week. Then of course I chose this path because we have to be accountable to each other. I am privileged enough to have made it to a place where I can come out. Mark Zuckerberg can support it. My other friends who are influential places can don't worry, you're not going to get deported. No one's going to allow that to happen. While every day, undocumented people are getting deported. So I had to make a decision to make it not just about me, but my faith has to be tied to your faith, and has to be tied to the faith of other people who share the exact same circumstance. So that was the decision.
How can we actively help with Define American? Can we volunteer /intern?
Yeah, thankfully we're always raising money. So if you want to go to Define American, please check it out. We finally have hired a full-time staff. I've been doing this kind of from the edge of my seats. And people ask me, what are you really trying to do? Getting the Associated Press to drop the word illegal was a big part of what we were trying to do. Just a big thing for us. Teaching the choir and engaging with people from different political, orientations is a big part of that. And to me, a big part of that is doing events like this. And as far as I'm concerned, the help that we could really do, and again, this is from my home turf here. We have to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. Yes. And I come from Mountain View, and we have a great day laborer center, in Mountain View. My friend Laura, who's here as well, tells me that elicited strong responses from neighbors, right? Or like, what are we doing here? It would be wonderful if here in the Bay Area, right, where there are many undocumented workers who make our region run in many ways, which is why when I talk to my software engineer friends, my Silicon Valley venture capital friends, who are all for immigration reform about H-1B visas, my question usually is, wait up, who babysits your kids? It can't just be for high-skilled. That phrase gets me so mad. I come from a farming family in the Philippines. There's nothing low-skilled about picking, harvesting crops. It's not about high-skilled or low-skilled. Everybody has something to contribute. And so I think having these, if cities, schools, community centers across our region would actually host something like this, and get people of different stakeholders to come, right, and have an honest conversation, an uncomfortable conversation, I think that would be a help, and Define American would be more than happy to sponsor it. So please check it out, defineamerican.com, and we're also on Facebook.
Okay, check it out, defineamerican.com. I think that ends the interview portion of this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, this is just our first stop. We are now very, very pleased to introduce the treasurer of Sequoia Adult School Scholars and the chief operations officer of Sequoia Adult School, Lionel DeMay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for supporting this event. Sequoia Adult School Scholars is run by volunteers, so all the money that we raise goes directly to help students attend college or advance in their careers or attain dreams that they never thought were possible. This year, as you heard from Elizabeth, we are sponsoring 40 people at Kenyatta College. With your help, we hope to increase that sponsorship next year. After this program, there will be people outside, some of our students are recipients of scholarships with silver buckets if you do want to donate. I would also like to remind you that all the donations we receive today are going to be matched by an anonymous donor, dollar for dollar. Yes. I'd also like to invite you all to the reception afterwards. It's in the multi-purpose room, which is, you go out the back and turn right, and you walk along the way a bit, and you'll see some lanterns in the hallway. Jose will be there, so you will have an opportunity to meet him. Before Before I ask the superintendent of the Sequoia Union High School District to officially thank Jose, I would like to thank some of the people who made this possible. I'd like to thank you all for being here. I would like to thank the corporate sponsors who underwrote a lot of this event. I would like to thank the students, staff and volunteers who worked very, very hard to make this happen. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. I would now like to invite to the stage Jim Leanne. He's the superintendent of the Sequoia Union High School District. We will formally thank Jose.
And Lionel, you are working on an accent, right? I'll tell you in a second how we know each other. But again, on behalf of the Sequoia Union High School District and all of our students, since Mountain View is your home, you have adopted Redwood City as your home, and we're just very happy to have you here and speak to our students, and that Redwood City is also your home. So thank you. I also want to say how Jose and I do know each other, and it goes back almost 20 years. He talked about Mountain View High School, but prior to Mountain View High School, he was a student at Crittenden Middle School. And the time that Jose was a student there, I was principal of Crittenden Middle School. And I'll refrain from talking about all the times that he was in my office. But anyway, there was a teacher at Crittenden Middle School that I know was a very special person in your life from the very beginning, and her name was Nancy Muka.
Yes.
No, she's not with us. But, and she's someone who actually came to me and brought you to my attention at that time, and was someone that I think was very much supporting you and helping you in those years prior to being 16, and when you were an immigrant, actually. And I certainly remember having a few words with you way back when, and how hard it was being a new immigrant coming into a school and trying to learn English, trying to learn everything that was around being in Mountain View, California, and being a middle school student. And you were obviously extremely successful for that. I also know Rich Fisher pretty well, and anytime I run into Rich, he always speaks of you and your work, and he's very, very proud of the time that you were in Mountain View High School and the relationship that the two of you have. So again, on behalf of the Sequoia Union High School District, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, and much success in your work. For you. Thank you, Jose, from all of us at the Sequoia Adult School Scholars. So it's a picture to remember this afternoon by. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. That ends the program. You're now invited to the reception. Hang a right, walk until you see some lanterns in the road. Thank you very much for being here.